how do I do this again? Okay, oh, there we go. Hi guys, Uncle Valk here, and Happy New Year. Haven't seen you guys in a while, and I hope you guys have been having a banging new year, and if you were a climber last season for RTA, I hope you hit your goal. But finally, we got our long-awaited dev notes that everyone's been waiting for, featuring a grand total of 11 heroes and 3 artifacts. It's gonna be a lot to go over, so let's just dive right into it. First up is Judge Kise, and now I think she's identified as a tactical nuke. If she takes a turn, I think a lot of times the match is effectively over. It's going to be a lot harder to use compared to a lot of modern DPS units, right? Because originally she got a rework as a more of a flexible unit. She could be built speed with effectiveness, but now she's been reworked back to her old state. Her S1 now just does some defense penetration on the damage, and her S2 is more like her old S2. It dispels all buffs and 100% chance to disable counterattacks for 2 turns. 75% chance to defense break for 2. Soulburn comes back here for the extra turn, and now the S3 will just do a lot of damage and then increase skill cooldown by a turn. And when you awaken it, gives invincibility for a turn. So basically, she's another one of those characters where if you get her to take a turn, she's just going to be able to put the game away. I think she's actually very strong, but hard to play and hard to gear. Because to play her to her full potential, I think you're going to be able to want to play her decently fast, with 100 effectiveness teched in for units like Karina, as well as a lot of people's Crimson Armaments, which has been a very popular pick on the rise. I think it's going to be easier for Wales because she now has a effectiveness on her self concentration imprint at 27%. It's going to be a lot. It's a very cleave heavy change, and I think this is easily one of the more notable changes of this patch. Okay, next up is Specimen Says. Before, whenever he had his ultimate available to him, he used to have a Elbrus active at all times. It gave him a free artifact slot, and now that's been replaced by just a straight flat 50% increase in evasion. Now, if you haven't already seen, I actually think Specimen Says is a very playable character, although slightly difficult to use. So you take your arrow wall and you stun any idiot as you normally would. And then you say bye-bye to their hyper carry. It is literally a free win in your hands. I don't know why people bitch about getting Spez anytime they get Spez. It's so fucking free! Going with that theme, he has a lot of natural synergy with units like Solitaria, SC Airwall, as well as Navy Captain Landy. And when you do get him to take a turn against a stun target, he does unnatural amounts of damage. So having the evasion just lets him improve his consistency, and letting a build like this just be able to pop off. It's not a huge change. I think it's a very 5 out of 10, but I do think it's something that he does need. Now, Eye Celine got a lot of changes across the board. Her damage naturally has been lowered a little bit, but in order to compensate, they increase some of her healing, it looks like, and as well as increase her damage penetration margin. On top of that, her unique buff now gives her additional 25% attack. So overall, it's just a damage change across the board, which is just pushes up her functionality, and I think this pushes her build to be a faster build, go on speed set, run the Secret Art Storm Sword build without needing to rely on her equipment set for that functionality. This is going to be more playable for her as a tech pick versus a lot of fast aggressive comps that rely on these non-attacking supports that trigger your Storm Sword artifact. Overall though, I think this is a kind of a 3 to 4 out of 10 change. They're very careful with this because I think if Eye Celine is at any point ever too good, the game just gets broken. So that's one of the units where I'm a little sad that she didn't get more out of this, but you know, it's okay. Now up next is probably the buff that I'm excited for the most. They basically did a small rework for Hwayoung. That's a unit that took over the game for 9 months when she was first released, and then subsequently nerfed, and now they're giving a little bit of power back. So now, instead of giving her just more attack and a barrier, they are scaling up her damage received, and on top of that, they are giving her an attack buff built in. Now, I'm sure they're giving her this entirely for one reason. They don't want there to be a big discrepancy between whales and non-whales. And, you know, if Hwayoung at any point is good again, whales will run Benimaru's Tachi on her, and I'm pretty sure they just want to avoid that, so she's going to get an attack buff on her turn. But this is going to hurt her in some ways. If you guys remember, units that can give themselves attack buff before their big skill, generally speaking, do not have that much damage. They have a very high damage floor, but low damage ceiling. Case in point, I think best example to represent that is old Arunka before her buff, right? Old Arunka before her buff gave herself attack buff, but even on barrier targets, she wasn't that strong. And when she did get buffed, she lost her attack buff, and you know, people were really sad about that. But what happened, right? They essentially doubled her damage, so that without attack buff, she was doing just as much damage. But now when you play correctly and you play well, you set up attack buff on her, she's just taking out every unit behind a barrier. And I think that type of unit, right, those ones where they have a good damage floor and they have an even higher damage ceiling are strong, but Hwayoung doesn't have that benefit. She gets an attack buff for herself. Her soul burn's also been moved so that she just does a little bit more damage on her S1. And now her S3, I think, is where the big change is at for her. It still dispels all debuffs from the caster, grants immunity and a barrier for 2 turns, and when you are gapping the opponent by their attack, so it no longer has anything to do with her HP. You just have to have higher attack, and if you can double their attack, and that shouldn't be too hard now that she gives herself attack buff, you are going to be able to do true damage, but the damage has been decreased. So really how strong this is, we are going to have to see until the buff comes in. As is always with damage dealers, gotta remind you guys, need to wait till we see the numbers before we give our final judgment. And once again, immunity and the barrier is now moved here. So it gives her a little bit more counterplay, because the barrier is not like permanent. Now, following that, this is a really simple and sweet buff. I actually really like this. It gives Elena 1 more cleanse, right? So now her S3 automatically will be able to just cleanse. And on top of that, she still has her 1 cleanse from EE, her exclusive equipment, meaning she'll just have 1 more natural cleanse. She's already a unit that's played very often right now into not only cleave, but also control style comps. So she's actually played a fair bit at the highest level. She's seeing very good success. And now on top of all of that, she will get a free artifact slot, because now it's mandatory that she runs Doctor's Bag, and she doesn't have to do that anymore. And, you know, my own conspiracy theory is they're trying to sell more Ning Ning's artifact, run ED Gadget. So I like this a lot. I actually think this is a simple 8 out of 10 buff. They did really well by her. She got moved off of a guaranteed 5-star artifact, and there's a lot more things you can do with her now. You can run Tome to just turbo CR push with her on a slower build. Get creative. This is one I'm actually fairly excited for. Command model Laika. This one I don't think they did too much for. Bumping sleep chance up to 100%, I think very necessary, and then also speed down. Okay, cool, right? But here's the real money, right? Her exclusive equipment. Now, instead of increasing the sleep chance, which was the old way you used to be able to bump it up real high, now when you S2 something, right? When you land the target buff on them, it decreases buff durations by a turn. I think that's actually fairly huge, because if you guys have been playing a lot of competitive matches, immunity set has moved hugely into the metagame due to how much harmful effects you can mitigate, right? Ever since Hand Guy, all the debuff units that's been coming out, like Death Dealer Ray, and then subsequently the buff, Knock Wall, right? The debuffs just hurt you a lot more in the current meta. So being able to decrease buff duration to apply target, it gives you a lot more potential just to play a high combo oriented nuke composition with her, or let you set up a very sick Architect Laika combo. So I do like this. I don't think it's a crazy good buff, but another one of those simple, sweet, yet effective buffs. On to the 4 stars. I'm actually not a fan of this auxiliary lots buff. So the number one thing they did for him is they increased the cooldowns from 2 turns to 3 turns on his S2. I hate how the text here is green, as if we did a good thing. Look, the number got bigger. But really, he can no longer infinite combo with Spirit's Breath. That has been a cheese that's been in the community for the longest time, where you can cheese a lot of Nightmare Raid, cheese Abyss. They did give it an effectiveness buff for 2 turns, which is cool, and they moved the extra turn here. Can you guys imagine if they left this at 2 turns and then they moved the extra turn here? He would go so insane. So low-key kind of glad that, you know, it got extended, but also, man, my combos, this just makes me sad. But now he's going to be a little bit different. You're going to be able to push a unit, and then, you know, if you soul burn, right, you give yourself effectiveness buff. Now you're stripping 2 buffs and has a 75% chance to silence for 2 turns. 2-turn silence are really powerful in this game because it lets you get past things like Meteor Koeric, who has always been a option that is way too safe in being able to tank down. Now you can go before him and silence him for 2 turns so that he cannot cleanse, or go after him and then dispel the immunity and the attack buff. So overall, I would have really loved this change if it didn't nerf the infinite combo. It trivialized a lot of PvE content, which, you know, if you're a lazy player like me, Aux Lots was one of my bread and butters to be able to get a lot of free gear real fast, and I'm just sad that combo's going away. Following auxiliary lots is Infinite Horizon Achates. This buff is really simple, so every time her cooldown is available for this particular skill, it just increases her combat readiness by 20% instead of 15%. So what this does right now is it's very strong versus cleave and control, right? Because the easiest way to beat these compositions is to steal the turn away from them. Me and the boys are really excited, hoping she at least gets some more ways for buff manipulation, but all she got is a 5% bump. This kind of puts her on par with, you know, but not quite there, with units like Sage Ball and Seline when it comes to anti-cleave, but overall, this is just a really boring change. Not too much, but hey, if you play her, I'm sure it's an appreciated move. Blue Romann. I've only ever seen this guy played to cook very specific control drafts, and his main job is he shuffles CR, right? He messes up your combat readiness, and now it applies Restrict before it does things like Inflict Poison, and then it increases own combat readiness just to kind of mess up your CR even further. I do think him being able to apply Restrict means, you know, now that you can lock your opponent's combat readiness in place and they have to natural speed their turns, it'll be very annoying to get out of, but still, I think in the metagame, he dies to Designer Lilibet almost instantly, and the change kind of doesn't have too much impact. Oh boy, oh god, I even forgot this was a thing. Montomorancy. She gets 25% more sleep chance. She is 5% tankier. Woo. To me, after all the work Smilegate did with Arrowell and how dominant Arrowell is in the meta, I was hoping Smilegate would be able to come up with another strong 3-star unit like Christie. I think that was a huge opportunity for them, and they didn't do too much with Christie. And now they had another chance to make another play with a 3-star unit, and that's a fan favorite, Montomorancy, right? I think they fumbled the sleep here too, or they fumbled the bag here, rather. I mean, increased sleep chance is cool. It tells me Smilegate really likes Bunny Dom's spot in the meta, but overall, when so many units in the meta has 100 effective resistance, I don't think this does anything. So overall, I really hope, you know, Montomorancy was like able to reset her S2 under some specific condition to outplay units like Knockwall, which was very, very overpowering for a lot of slower players. But alas, we didn't get that, so it is what it is. And that is all the hero changes. Moving on to the artifacts, number 1 is Circus Fantasia. It gives you 15% crit on top of its original effect. This one kind of had me as a head scratcher. I think it pretty much only makes it better for Mui herself exclusively and nothing else. Because Mui is an effectiveness-based hero that really wants crit chance for her to work. If anything, I actually think it makes this artifact a little bit worse. Because Conqueror Lilius now, who is one of the main users of this artifact, there's a very aggressive playstyle out there that uses this artifact to ride super high effectiveness and then use it to crowd control their opponents. Now it's worse versus tanky compositions because ML Ken is one of the main anchors for defensive compositions, and now Conqueror Lilius is more likely to just walk herself into ML Ken and completely lose control of her turn. So we'll have to see how it goes. I don't think this one does too much. Okay, and then finally, the last artifact getting buffed is Sacred Tree Branch. Now it works on both self and highest attack ally for the combat readiness push, effectively doubling your value with this artifact. I think that's pretty cool, but the real cool thing here is now it also works on S3s as well as S1s, so you're not bound to just S1ing on your turn to push or counter-attacking into a push, right? It lets you steal turns when you S3, it gives Sharoon more turn cycling, and honestly, I can really only think of it working on Green Sharoon herself. I don't know if it works on anything else. But if there's ever a unit, especially a Soul Weaver, in fact, that can attack maybe twice in a turn, right? Like if you think about Navy Captain Landy Salvo, counter Salvo, if you can do something like that with a Soul Weaver, and that would actually push a lot for this. So that's generally where I'm keeping my eye on when it comes to Sacred Tree Branch. But for now, the only unit I can really think of that goes hard with this artifact is just Green Sharoon herself. Overall, I think Smoutgate is still playing this patch safe, and maybe a little too safe, and not making any big moves and not taking risks. Considering the fact that this patch has been delayed so that they can work on it longer and finalize it, I did expect big meta shifting moves like when we got with Death Dealer Ray or with the Briar Witch Asaria patch last year. I think the headliner for this patch are mainly Judge Kise and Hwayoung, and a few other damage dealers mostly. So I'm gonna have to reserve judgment for how this patch is, and honestly attempt to hold back my disappointment for some of these changes until I see the final numbers on the characters, specifically like Hwayoung, whom I'm probably the most excited for this patch. But that being said, I do want to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments which changes you guys are excited for, which buffs you guys think they did well on. That's pretty important for me, and you know, also I want to hear where you guys think they fumbled the bag, because I definitely have my opinions on that one. But yeah, that's it from me for this video. Thank you guys for sticking with me through it. I really appreciate it. And man, it's been a while since I made a video. I don't remember what to say. Sub, like, comment, bye.